Hey everyone, welcome to this practice. So in this one, we're going to actually go ahead and create our Python blackjack game. And what I'm going to do, what I'm planning to do is to cut this whole, solution into a few different parts. So we can actually go ahead and create this in multiple sections or multiple parts, so that way it's going to be easier for you guys to understand instead of me having to create a 1 hour video, because it's one of those more complicated programs that you're going to create. So instead of just making long ones, I just decided to cut it into multiple parts, so that way it's easier to understand. Also, I get more time to explain and you can have more time to actually digest it and understand it better. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So we got our PyCharm open. We created our project in the previous lesson. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean this up and we're going to start writing our code. So let's think about what we're supposed to do here. So first of all, the first thing we got to import, if you think about it, is the random module, right? Because we're going to be choosing random cards. So we need to import that. And what we need to do is, the first thing we need to do is we need to get a random card from the deck. So this is going to be used to hand it to the user, and also this is going to be used to hand it to the computer, right? Or the dealer, or whatever we call it. So, the first things first, we got to actually get that random card. So that's what we're going to do here. And also we're going to actually hand it to the user. So that's what I'm trying to achieve in the first video here, is to get the random card and then hand it to the user and the dealer or the computer. So with that being said, we're going to create a in this whole practice, we're going to be creating a lot of different functions, but the first function we're going to create is going to be the deal card function. So I'm just going to import random module. All right, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. And then I'm going to say, well, we're going to define a function. All right, we're going to call it deal card, and we're going to just obviously this is going to be a deal card function, and I'm going to just add a value to it in case because I want us to make sure we remember. So we're going to say return a random card from the deck. All right, so at least we know what this function is going to be about. Again, that's just, we talked about doc strings in this previous section, I believe. So that's basically what it is. So let's actually drop our card deck, and I'm going to copy it from the slide that we had in the previous video. So I'm just going to copy that. There you go. So we got our card deck. Again, this is pretty much what we had. 11, that's the ace, and then 2, 3, 2 to 10, and then we got our jack, queen, and king, right? So that is our card deck. And again, we're going to assume this is an infinite deck, so we're not going to be taking out these numbers of the list. So so with that being said, so we got our cards. Now what we need to do is we need to get it to return a random card. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to define a new variable, and I'm going to call it card, and I'm going to say we're going to use a random choice method. All right, so random choice, and we're going to put the cards in there. So essentially what we're doing is that we're using this method and we're dropping this cards right here. So essentially this is going to be, this card variable is going to be a random value from this list. That's basically what we did. And obviously, because this is a function that we're going to be using throughout our code, we need to return it. We need to add an output to this function, right? So we're going to say return card. So that way, when we actually call this function, we will have some sort of a value showing. All right. So that's that. That's our deal card function. And again, nothing too complicated here. We just have a very simple function that has a list, and we pick a number from this list. Very simple. All right, so we're done with our list. Let's just make sure that PyCharm is happy with our styling. So we're done with that. Now we need to actually deal this card to the user. Now the way I'm thinking that we're gonna store this is that we're going to have two lists. Okay, one is gonna be user cards, one is gonna be computer cards, or the dealer cards, whatever. And that way, that way we can actually store these values essentially. So I'm going to create these. I'm just going to say user cards equals, and we're going to have an empty list, and we're going to do the same thing for computer cards, and we're going to have an empty list. All right, there you go. Let's make sure that, there you go. So there you go. So computer cards, these are our empty lists. So just like that, we got our empty list done. All right. The next step is to actually, hand out the cards. And one of the things is that we got to remember is that we need to hand out the card twice. So we need to give out two cards, right? So once is going to be twice to the dealer, twice to the computer, or twice to the user. So that's what we're going to do. So to do this, we're going to use a for loop, and we're going to use this empty for loop. So the idea with this is that, let me just write that down for you. So the idea with this is that if we talked about for loops, and especially having an empty for loop. So the idea with this is that we're going to, actually I forgot the in, there you go. So the idea with the for loop in range is that we're just going to say run this loop twice. That's basically what we're doing. All right, so that's pretty much it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say this, we're going to say new card equals deal card. So basically what we did is that we picked a new card from this, function, right? So that's what we did. And what we're going to do is we're going to hand it or append it to the user cards, to this list. All right. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to grab this user cards and I'm going to append, okay? And we're going to say new card. So just like that. So what we did was that we appended the new card that we just grabbed here, right, from this deck, and we appended to the user card. Now let's actually do this for the computer too, because we got to hand out a card to the computer, right? So we're going to say computer. So just like that, we grabbed two cards each time for each user, either the computer or the user, and we appended it to a list. So again, I want you to understand this before we move forward. I'm going to explain it one more time exactly what I did. So what I did was I made a for loop that is going to run twice, right? We got range and 2. So this, and then inside this, we defined a new variable called a new card. And again, it's like pulling a card. And this variable is going to call this function, which is going to give us a random card, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the list, the user card list, and we're going to append this new card that we just pulled using this function to this list. And we're going to do the same thing for the computer cards. Now, one of the things I want you to remember is that there is, if you have thought about doing this by yourself, there is a way that you could do this, or another way that you could do this that actually could cause a problem. All right. So let's actually comment this out real quick. All right. So one of the ways that you could think about, well, not this one. Let's actually think about this. So one of the ways that you could think about doing this, okay, was that you could say user cards, okay. Let's just pull this user cards. You could say plus equals new card. Now this is, I'm sure some people have thought about doing this because it's much easier, right? It's just kind of an easier way to get out of this. But here's the problem. Okay, I want you to think about this. This is not going to work, and we're going to get an error. Okay, and I think if I run this, we will get an error. There you go. Yeah, so we're going to get this error, and it's going to say that the type error integer object is not iterable. So what does this actually mean? All right, when you see the iterable error, the idea with this is that you're trying to add something to something else that is just not the same type. So in this case, think about it this way. So we're getting a new card, right? And this card is being pulled from this function, and this function has an output, right? What is the output of this function? It is an integer. We're getting a single number. All right. So we are basically, what we're doing is that we're getting this, we're actually saying that, hey, add this number to this list. And these are two different types of things. Okay, a number is different from a list in Python. So you can't just add a number to a list. That doesn't work like that. Okay, so that's why you get this error. Because now, if this was the, if the number that you were pulling out, this new card number that we were pulling out using this function was a list itself, that could be possible. For example, if you could put this in a list, that actually would be possible. I think we're not getting an error if you do this. Yeah, there you go. We're not. But again, that's not what we're trying to do, right? So that's just not for our use cases. That's not going to work. So that's why this doesn't work. So again, this wouldn't work because you're adding a number to a list, and it doesn't work. The way you work with a list is that you need to append something to it. All right, so that's why we're using append like this instead of like adding it like this. All right, so just want to kind of remind you, this is something that you might come across when you're trying to do this. Anyway, so that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. We got our work done for this, at least a particular video or lesson. So one of the things I want to do is I want to make this a little bit cleaner. Okay, I want to do this a little bit nicer and cleaner, so we like don't have like 3 lines of code. I know, it's like it can confuse a lot of people, but I think it would be nice to do this as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this out entirely, okay, and we're going to do this a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to say user cards append, all right, and what we're going to say is we're going to deal cards, so that we're going to call our function, right? And just like that, if you think about it, we just did the entire thing. So we just called the user cards, we appended we appended this number using this function. We called this function inside the append. So just like that, we did like what we're supposed to do like here with these 2 lines. Right, so that's like a lot cleaner, so we don't have an like extra variable here, so that's a lot more cleaner. So we can do the same thing for the computer as well. So like I'm just gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna copy this, and I'm going to just copy this right here. There you go. So just like that, we got computer cards append. Again, we're grabbing this list, we're appending this number from we're calling this function inside the append, and we're appending it to the computer cards. So just like that, our code is going to be much cleaner. So hopefully you did it through this point, guys. Again, we're going to continue working on this. We're nowhere near done yet, but we're making progress. So if you're still having a hard time understanding this, I strongly recommend you to watch this video again, because this is really important, and it's really important for you to actually get this right. All right, so let me know if you have any questions, and let's continue working on this problem in the next lesson.